Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another Short War video, and today we're receiving breaking news that the Russian pilot who delivered that MI-8 helicopter to Ukraine from Russia has been found dead in Spain under very suspicious circumstances. So obviously that's a big story in itself, and we're also learning more news about a potential successor to Navalny, and we're learning more news about how the Russians are trying to cover up Navalny's death by hiding his dead body from his family. So very big news on both of those fronts, and let's go ahead and jump right into our first post here, which is from the Kyiv Post. And this one says, the main intelligence directorate, the HRU, confirms the death of the Russian pilot Kuzminov, who hijacked the Mi-8 helicopter for Ukraine, and Andrei Yusov, who is an HRU representative, says we can confirm the fact of his death. So, very big news here, and to be honest with you, it really does not come as much of a surprise because this individual, Kuzminov, who stole the helicopter from Russia, would have had a massive target on his back because he embarrassed Russia on an international level. He made it look like Russia doesn't even have control of their own armed forces, which they really don't, and this kind of proved that. And they even stole one of those valuable helicopters that Russia desperately needs to keep fighting this battle. And this guy right here proved to be a massive, massive embarrassment for Russia. So not surprising to me that he has been assassinated. And in our next post here, we learn more details around this assassination. And this one is from Nexta. And it says, the Ukrainian intelligence shared details about the death of Kuzminov. It says he decided to move to Spain instead of being here in Ukraine. And from what we know, he invited his ex-girlfriend to his place and was found shot dead. So it's unclear here if maybe the ex-girlfriend had a part in maybe setting up something here or not. You really can't say that based on what we're reading here, but it's kind of confusing. But certainly very suspicious, and someone went in there and apparently shot him right before she arrived. So obviously it sounds like a murder to me. I'm no expert in that, but it definitely sounds like a murder. And considering this guy had a lot of big enemies, that wouldn't be too far-fetched whatsoever. I also find it kind of interesting that the guy decided to move to Spain instead of remaining in Ukraine. It seemed like his better option for survival was to actually stay in Ukraine instead of going to Spain, because as we know, Russia has operatives all around the world that they use to basically go and try to kill people and also conduct intelligence. And it's not too far-fetched to think that they're also in Spain as well. So this guy basically walked into a hornet's nest outside of the protection of the Ukrainians and allowed himself to get put in a very bad position. But nonetheless, with that piece of news out of the way, we're moving on to our next one here, which is also from Nexta. And this is that story about Navalny I was talking about and a potential successor to Alexei Navalny's position as well. And it's actually his widow, Yulia, who says she's going to continue the work of her late husband. And she says that she's grieving and she calls on the country of Russia to stand with her and to basically not be intimidated by the Russian government and to oppose Putin. And to me, this seems like a very bad idea for her. I'm not sure really why she would decide to step up and do this because Navalny just suffered a very bad death in Russian hands because of his work. And, you know, I know that she is grieving very heavily right now, and maybe that influenced her decision very heavily. She's also being blocked by the Russians from seeing Navalny's body, which would basically allow her some closure or also to figure out exactly what happened, so that way she's not in the dark. But as we're seeing here, she's going to jump right into the fire herself and basically carry the torch on. So on one hand, while I do applaud the bravery of Yulia here, it's somewhat of a ill-fated decision, to say the least, because I kind of see how this is going to end up, and I think everyone else does as well. And I think she might have made this decision in the midst of grief, which is never a good time to make a decision quite like this that could potentially change your life. But it looks like she has made that decision and she's gone public with it. But nonetheless, we're moving on to our next post here, which is also from Nexta. And I think this might have played a little bit into Yulia's decision here. It says, the body of the murdered opposition politician Alexei Navalny has not yet been handed over to his relatives, and the cause of death has not yet been established. And the Russian investigative committee has told Navalny's mother that he died of sudden death syndrome. And to me, that is very sick to say that, because that's almost like a mocking attempt to the mother of a dead son. And the Russians are basically mocking her at this point, which is quite disgusting and despicable, and really shows you the depraved nature of the Russians and how far they'll go to actually rub it in the face of a mother whose son has now been murdered by their government. So very sick indeed. But with that, we're moving on to our next post here, which is from the Euromaidan Press. And switching gears a little bit from all of that sort of dark news, this one right here says, the current administration in the USA is considering providing Ukraine with long-range Army tactical missile systems, also known as ATACMS, if Congress approves a new funding package, reports NBC News, citing unnamed U.S. officials. So this is very good news indeed, because ATACMS are a crucial part of the frontline strategy that Ukraine is using against Russia, but this good news does come with a caveat. It says if Congress approves a new funding package, and right now, Congress is having a very hard time getting that Ukraine aid package passed. It's being held up, it's being blocked, and a lot of people are playing games with it, and it doesn't look like it's going to pass in the immediate future. And it maybe will take the beginning of March to actually get it passed, if it ever does at all. So, while this is a good piece of news here, it is overshadowed with some bad as well. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But moving on to our next piece of news here, we have another one from Next Up. And this is some big news as well. We're learning here that the Russian troops are attacking in 5 directions at once, while Ukraine lacks weapons and soldiers, according to the New York Times. It also says here the Russians are attacking simultaneously in Avdiivka, Mariinka, Robotny, Kremenka, and also Bakhmut directions. So all of the usual spots that Russia is usually pinpointing, they're back at it again, and they're back at it strong. It says here the capture of Avdiivka is the first significant victory for the Russian armed forces since May of 2023, after the capture of Bakhmut. So if we take a look at the map here that's been provided by the New York Times, we can see that they are once again attacking here in the Kremenka direction, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Mariinka, and Robotny as well, like I just mentioned a moment ago. And that's basically amongst the whole front line. So the Russians have gotten supercharged by the small little Pyrrhic victory they had in Avdiivka, which was basically a joke because Avdiivka had no strategic significance to it. It was simply another propaganda victory. And now the Russians are thinking, let's charge. Let's go throw all of our men into the meat grinder even worse and see what we can do and see what kind of hell we can raise. And right now, they're really not achieving any progress, but they are starting these new offensives, and they are attacking at once. So personally, me, I'm not very concerned about this because I am confident that the U.S. or the European Union will provide more aid to Ukraine, so the ammo shortage won't last for very long, in my opinion. Now, that does come down to personal opinion, whether or not you think the weapons and things like that are going to get passed or sent to Ukraine any further. But to me, I think it's a done deal. It's just a matter of time. And I think they'll arrive in time as well. But I don't think there's any reason to panic, and to me, it looks like it's going to go just fine. But anyways, moving on to our last post here, we have one from Visegrad24. And if you need any more proof that Russia is aligned with terrorist groups, and also Russia is a terrorist country itself harboring terrorists, and I don't know how much better you're going to get than this. It says Putin has invited Hamas for a meeting on February 26th. And remember, Hamas, the terrorist group who is currently harassing Western allies in the Middle East, and they're also messing with Israel as well. It says Russia has invited all Palestinian organizations, including Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, which is terror classified, and the Palestinian Authority for an inter-Palestinian meeting in Moscow. And this is a hell of a pairing indeed, because Russia, being the sick, sadistic country that it has become under Putin, and also like it was under the Soviet Union, basically for the entire history of that region, they've sort of been sick. But as we can see here, they're inviting even more sick people to join their ranks. So it's a perfect opportunity for Putin to basically make his intentions known, and he's making it known that we side with terrorists and evil people, and we will until the end of our days. And that's the way Putin is going to go out eventually, is siding with these evil people. He's going to go deeper in the rabbit hole of conducting atrocities alongside his buddies here, which are absolute sickos as well. So with that, that is actually our last piece of news for the day. And I hope you found this video informative as usual, and if you have, please press that like button and subscribe to the channel as well. It greatly helps us out. And also, if you want to support us financially, you can do so with our Patreon page. The link is in the description below, and that support is greatly appreciated as well. So once again, thank you all for watching, and bye-bye for now.